Okay. Own your shit. Be transparent. Be vulnerable. Be authentic. That's what being yourself is all about. Loving yourself. And let me fix this. So, I'm Desi, and I'm sending you lots of positive love and vibes because that's my thing, and you get back what you put out. So, I'm going to do something tonight that I've never done before, and I've been really nervous about it all day, and I've had to wait till tonight till kids were in bed, till I didn't think I was going to be disturbed. They're probably listening to me right now because I know what I'm doing. So I'm going to share my story on recovery. In my last post, it said addicted mom to self-reliant, self-loving, self-empowered, and that was me for 15 years. My main thing was painkillers, occasional blow. If I didn't have that, probably had some shooters in my purse just so I could feel something. But I'm not going to tell you my story because I do not want you to feel bad for me. I do not want pity. I just want you to know that once you own your shit, you can start growing from that. But so I came from a really good, I had a pretty good childhood. I had good parents and have good adolescence, but I think the problem started when I was about 15. I met a boyfriend that was pretty much into everything, and that's when I started experimenting with different things. I thought that I became so dependent on him for validation because he was breaking me down, and then because I was so self-reliant on him to make me feel good, that he became the only thing that could lift me up, so I was addicted to him. And finally at 19 I left him, and I worked at a place for a very long time. I worked there for 16 years, and during that time they would see things like me running out the back alleyway from this kid, and it was a really crazy time. That was kind of the beginning of everything. And then I started dating. I had a couple other serious long-term relationships, but then I was with my son's father. And it was during that time is when I started experimenting with Vicodin and other painkillers. And it was an occasional thing. It was like, oh, I'll just take 1.5 in the morning to get me going. And then I turned into more. And it turned into such lies and deceit. And it keeps looking like my zipper's open, but it's just these jeans. Well, then I wanted to get pregnant. Now, let me kind of backtrack of how I was introduced to Vicodin. I had a lot of teeth procedures done. I was prescribed Vicodin like candy. There was a local dentist in our area that we all knew that if we went there that we could get a prescription immediately. So that's what I was doing, among other things. So I decided that I wanted to get pregnant because I knew that if I got pregnant that I would be able to change my life, and because I would be doing it for another human being. Bad thought. Can't do it for anybody else. Have to do it for yourself. But the day I found out I was pregnant, I stopped. I did. I stopped immediately with everything. I didn't smoke cigarettes. I was so good, and I felt amazing. And then after I had him, I was nursing And for about 3 months, and I ran into somebody that I knew had a prescription of Vicodin. And actually, they offered me some, and I literally stopped nursing so that way I could take these again. Like, what was I thinking? It still blows my mind. So, as my relationship progressed, then I was being so deceitful, but I was taking it out and projecting it onto my boyfriend and fiance at that time, and met somebody else who was shaking that carrot right in front of me. It was so disgusting. I left my family life. I left my house that I had built with my fiance and my son, and we were this family, and I left because of somebody saying that they had money and trips and whatever I wanted, and tattoos. Locally, people know who that person was, and that was my downfall. He would go out and buy just astronomical amounts of these pills, and then I would have to give him my paycheck because I was always indebted to him. And then once I wanted something, he held on to them. So I was at his, what do they call it? I had to ask and beg and do unthinkable things that you couldn't even imagine from your own boyfriend, just so you could have your Vicodin. He disabled my car, and then so that way I had nowhere to go. But that was after he disabled the extra car and told me that it was broken. So he had to take me everywhere. He knew everywhere I was going. He started intercepting my messages, and he had spyware, and he knew where I was and when I was. And, you know, all this time, he's telling my mother he's trying to help me, and he's using these manipulative things. He was so scary. Just to try to, oh, there's thunder. Listen to that thunder. I hope you can hear it. To make him look like the hero, and me look like the bad person. And boy, did it work. We used to have this website in Jamestown. It was called Jamestown Topics, and it had the most awful comments about people, and people would just go on there and just bash each other. And my name was on there a couple times, and, you know, I would report it, and it's abuse, and it's defamation of character, and, you know, this whole time, you know why it hurt so bad? Because most of it was true, and I couldn't own it. Well, I finally got the courage to leave him, and that was a Lifetime movie in itself, with tires slashed and stolen equipment out of my car and pouring sugar in that gas tank. It was just, and having me staked out. That was a really scary time, and that's a whole nother video on relationship issues. But so at this time, I'm full blown in my addiction, and it is bad. And so I leave. Somehow I got away, and that's another story again. And I'm doing okay. You know, I'm starting to do all right. I had been to rehab, had to leave my son for 30 days, did well for about 8 months. When I ran from him, I had to get an apartment really fast, but here I was with my son, starting over for the second time, this poor boy, and he's only 3 and a half. And here we are in another crazy emergency apartment that I would never ever live in this day. And during this time, I started drinking a little bit more because I obviously wasn't doing the painkillers. I sound so old. And I got a DWI. Well, I was smoking pot at that time as well, and this DWI caused me to go on probation. And smoking pot was staying in my system for 30 days. So I'm like, what? I don't want to be sober yet. What? I just have a DWI, so I can't drink. So I gotta find something that's gonna be in my system. If I get in, I can get that out of my system quick. So I played the whole manipulation game. Well, you know what? That lasted for about 2 months and got caught and was put on drug court. Me on drug court. That was so embarrassing, but let me tell you, little old me was trying to be manipulative and manipulate the system, so I was still using, and then counting out the days until I had to go and be there again, and what a life. Well, I ended up there were multiple times where I got arrested for stupid things, or fighting with my best friend, or being accused of stealing a rock star out of a store when I walked in there with it. It was just the craziest things would happen, and I ended up meeting somebody, and I was kind of getting back into my recovery, and well, he wasn't such a good person, and I knew that I could really use him. And what do you know, I thought that I would, if I got pregnant, that I would be able to quit using again. Not this time. 9 years later, not 7 years later. My addiction was so, it almost got worse. And because I wanted the help and I was too afraid to ask for it, I was now pregnant, addicted to Vicodin, on drug court. Like, I can't ask for help. I'm gonna go to jail. I'm pregnant. What do I do? Well, I end up getting caught with a dirty screen, so haha, saved my life. Now, the drug court coordinator here is very well known, and I remember going to her, and she's like, well, you're gonna go take your 3-year probation stunt instead of 1 year, and you're gonna have an interlock in your car for that whole time. 3 years. Can I tell you about an interlock system? Can I tell you about this? These things. You use hand sanitizer, it'll go off. You spray perfume, it'll go off. And then you have to go get it calibrated. That's $75. It's like $400 to get it installed, $400 to transfer it into another car, $400 to take it out. And the calibration every month was $100. Don't drink and drive. That's some good advice. Well, so here I am, 2 months into my probation, and so got arrested. When I got to Mayville, I was calling my dad, calling everybody, calling my grandma. I'm like, please, somebody get me out. So before I even got to Mayville, I was able to be bailed out. So I didn't get the whole jail experience. Not at that point. So I have to go back to Kathy Newton and beg her to take me back on drug court for the second time. 2 months into there. I don't even think it was 2 months. The probation officer gives me a drug test, and I'm pregnant, and I come up dirty. I had to pause again. So I left off with, this is where she knew I was pregnant, and she said, you're going to rehab. That really saved my life. And you know, not only during this time was it just me trying to manipulate the system, but my mother knew what was going on, and she was writing letters to to the drug court coordinator and to the judge, begging for their help, telling them what I'm doing. She knew. Everybody knew. I didn't. Everybody knew. I didn't hide it very well at the end. No, I didn't hide it at all, let's just say. So here I am, 4 months pregnant, walking into a rehab. Hi, I'm Desiree. I'm an addict, and I'm pregnant. That was hard. So the thing about pregnancy and being addicted to opiates is that you cannot stop taking opiates without the chance of risk losing your baby. So I was prescribed Subutex. Subutex is something that they give you so it blocks opiates and it reduces cravings. Well, I was so adamant and so worried about the side effects of what she's going to go through, but there was no information, there was no support group for me. I was just wondering what's going to happen to my baby after she's born. Well, let's just get into that now. So, my whole pregnancy, her father he worked in Pittsburgh and during the week and then came home on the weekends, and basically I just wanted him to pay me rent. I planned on leaving him eventually when I could get my shit together. Well, I end up delivering her and everything was great. She was an easy delivery. She was healthy. She was 7'11", just perfect. The nurse came in to ask us what her name was going to be on the birth certificate, and I had decided to give her my last name because he wasn't there the whole time. I already knew that he was living a double life, and I didn't want him there anyway. So she said, okay, well, let me leave the room so you guys can discuss this. Well, I just delivered a baby, naturally, and he goes and struggles with me and tries to rip my purse out of my hands. And I just delivered a baby, and he's wrestling. My sheets are flying all over the place. Gross things are going everywhere. And the nurse, finally, she heard me tell him leave, and so he did. He left for 4 months. Never heard from him. When Sophia was 3 days old, they do the testing to test their levels to see if they're in any discomfort, because they're now coming off the Subutex, and they said that she's having some she's crying a little extra, and she's not soothing very fast, but nothing terrible. So they said, we can treat her here, which is, in my area, we have to when we deliver babies and they're addicted to, and they're an NAS baby, we go to a different hospital that specializes in that. So when they told me that I could stay there, that was a blessing. This was day 3. And they said I could stay there with her. Later that day, I had visitors. I was tired. I was really depressed because I just did this to my baby, and now she's going to have to go through a mild taper, but this is my fault. This was not my fault. How could I do this? I could not. My addiction was so strong. And then I felt guilty about taking the Subutex because I didn't have a support group for that. So I was tired and exhausted, and I was all alone in the hospital. I didn't have anybody there at this time, and it's almost like I don't know how fast it happened so fast, but one thing, first I have my baby, my 3-day-old baby in my lap, and next thing I know, I'm leaning over to pick up a onesie that dropped so I could get her dressed, and down she goes. I dropped my 3-day-old baby. The sound that it made played over and over in my head. So I picked her up, screaming down the hall. Somebody please help, I just dropped my baby. It was my first reaction was just to run and ask for help and pick her up. I thought it killed her. So they did some x-rays and they sent them out to the children's hospital, and they said that she did have a skull fracture. So they were sending an ambulance to come get her. Her skull is swelled up. There was a brain bleed. And I followed the ambulance out to Buffalo Children's to be with her. I felt like such a piece of shit mother. This is the stuff that I'm still working through and that I work on every day. But I stayed at around a McDonald's house by myself while she was in the NICU, and I couldn't tell anybody. So I went through that struggle alone, because some people knew that she was going through a detox from Subutex, but how could I let anybody know that after I did this? Now I dropped my baby and caused this really bad injury. So in the NICU, my bond grew so strong with her, and I was so sure that I was strong in my recovery. And I talked to people on the phone, but like I said, I was there alone, going back and forth from Ronald McDonald House to her. And so then we're doing really good, and I feel like the go-to medication for people that have had addictions, it's always like Wellbutrin and gabapentin. And let me tell you about gabapentin. Well, I had been clean, since I was 4 months pregnant. But then they prescribed me gabapentin. Gabapentin, take a couple of those, you feel different. And I thought I started rationalizing it in my brain. They're my prescription. I'm feeling a little extra nerve pain. I have a little more anxiety. I'm just gonna take 1 or 2 more extra. Well, one day when holiday dinner, I lived upstairs from my grandparents, my grandfather, and my son was in his room, and my daughter was in bed, and my mom was downstairs with my cousin, and they're cleaning up because I said, I don't feel so good. And next thing I know, I lay on my couch and I told Joey, I'll feel good. I'm gonna lay down. Next thing I know, waking up in the hospital. No idea what year it is. They had told me that I had 3 grand mal seizures and that my son found me. I had an ottoman that had a candle with little beads on top of it. And when I started convulsing into my first seizure, he could hear the tinging on the candle. So he comes running out and he's trying to give me CPR. He has no idea what's going on. So he calls downstairs for my mom and my cousin, who's a nurse. This is all the stuff that I'm told after, because I don't remember any of it. I guess I was combative with the police. I didn't want to go to the hospital. Still to this day, my speech is affected, my memory is affected. So, I'm on drug court, and this happened. And I have to go tell the coordinator what had just happened. Because my children were there, this hospital staff had to notify CPS. Because technically it's an overdose and a neglect. So I go to tell the coordinator, and I have my baby outside thinking, I'm safe. She's not gonna do it, and I have my baby. She looked at me and said, I've given you so many chances, Desiree. You're going to jail. Do you know what my jail bid was? A year. Because of a DWI it started out with. And then just, I could not get clean, no matter what. It was because I wasn't getting it up here. It wasn't going within. I was still trying to, my ego was still there, thinking that I could do what I wanted and not get caught for it. She said, who do you want to call to take your child? And I said, no, don't do this. And she picked up the phone and she called the police station, and for some universal source reason, they didn't pick up, because if they did, my child would have went into the system immediately right there. So instead, she called my mom, who picked up, and she came immediately, and she said, here you go, you're going to jail. 4 months, 4-month-old baby, my son, and I have to go to jail. $50,000 bail. I had 2 people come see me. I didn't eat. And then, during that time, a CPS worker comes in and takes me into a room, and she says, Desiree, who do you want to take care of your children? And I said, what? I'm getting out of here. You're not taking my children from me. And she says, the only way you're getting your children back is if you go and live in a residential rehab. That's the only way I'm going to release these children to you. 2 weeks I sat in jail until 2 people helped bail me out. And they're my angels to this day. And for the 2 weeks that, for some reason, my mom never gave up on me. The court system believed in me, and they said, we're gonna give you your bail. They set it high because they really wanted me to go bed to bed transfer, but instead of you spending a year in jail, we're gonna go let you do a residential rehab. So for the 2-week wait, I wasn't able to see my children without supervision. It wasn't until I walked through the doors of that rehab that I could have my baby back. And at that time, I didn't want my son to know where I was going. Like, I thought, he knew. I tried to hide it. 6 months. 6 months I raised my baby in a rehab. I couldn't choose when to shop for her. I couldn't choose when to go to the store. I didn't have a cell phone. I lost my car. I had to go on welfare. They gave me a food stamp card. I'm walking down Bailey Avenue on our hour break that we're allowed to leave the gate, living on the east side of Buffalo. Scary. And you know, I'm this middle-class white girl living down here. Good dose of humility. I hated that place. I hated it. And there's a few people there that I look back now, and I can look back on all of these things and I can say thank you, because since then I am 3 years strong, baby. 3 years. I'm working. I have my babies. I have a beautiful house. I have so much love for myself and love for my children and protection of my children and love for life. And I am, sometimes people think that I am high because I'm so high on life. It feels good. Life feels good finally. It took me a long time. 15 years. I hope that you can take this, and I know there's a lot of stuff that you probably can relate to and not relate to, but know that no matter where you are, where you came from, what you've done, what you're doing, you can change now and you can love yourself unapologetically. And I needed to do this because I need you to know that I am 100% real. I own my shit. I am authentic. This is me. I'm weird. I talk about weird, crazy shit about energy, vibrations, and all this other stuff. And I love it. And I feel so good. And I can't wait to start getting into giving you the tools that I use to feel this way now. Because life is good. And my babies are, I worked hard to be where I'm at, but you can do it. You gotta get to a place where you're just gonna say, there's no plan B. We don't have a plan B because we only have a plan A. We do it. We get through it. And if no one has told you today, I love you. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and you will get videos from me to help you transform into a self-reliant, self-empowered, self-loving human being.